Okay, everybody, it is 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. You have the agenda in front of you, Council. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Black. All those in favor? Aye. Those contrary-minded? Motion is approved. Thank you. Open for question period from the floor. Any questions to start?
My name's Brian Lane. I have two, maybe three questions tonight. First question was on the, I listened to the recording of the special meeting last week and the proposal, the Fort Folly proposal. Wasn't a lot of information that I could get from that meeting. What are the implications if the government goes ahead? I know they're just asking for comments, but what implications are there if it is created reserve land? Does it give a competitive advantage to that area over our industrial park, or do we know that information yet? I know there's no actual proposal for what they would develop it for, but if it is turned into reserve land, what are the competitive advantages that they may have?
Well, we'd be speculating. We've asked multiple times since they purchased it, a variety of individuals of what's the purpose. There doesn't appear to be an answer to that. There was apparently as well some discussion whether they wanted it as a reserve or not. So we really can't answer the question. If it does become a reserve, we did note on last week that it does provide a different tax status for some elements of development, particularly for those who work there. But it also does change the jurisdiction of some of the rules of planning around it as well. So those are two different aspects that might come directly up in what type of a development they ultimately choose to proceed with.
So if it is granted reserve status, would that give them, the reserve, a competitive advantage over our industrial park? Doesn't matter what they build, whether they build a Millbrook type situation or it's just some light industrial, whatever.
We don't know. We don't know if it would be more competitive. We don't know what you have to go through a 99-year lease to be able to build something on that land. What that lease would charge, I don't know. I don't know that there would be a numerical advantage or not to it. So.
Are we asking the question of ISC in our letter when we're asked to comment? That type of thing in general?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are we asking ISC in our comment letter what conceivably the change in these regulations would be?
Well, they're in the same situation that they are only asked to turn it into a reserve for commercial development, and that meets their criteria, and they have to advance that. And it's then their decision. It's actually federal cabinet's decision as to whether they grant it. They don't have to have any of the specific information before they make that decision.
Okay. My second question, which possibly could lead to a third question. We seem to be rolling towards a discussion or a purchase of quarry land for whatever the next stage of the flood control. Does the town, what's the best way of putting this, does the town have an option to purchase this land or right of first refusal from the owners now? We spend a lot of time discussing land that I don't think we own, so have we entered into anything like that yet?
Well, it's much like the Lawrence Street, that because land purchase is not an element of cost-shared eligibility, it is presumed that you will take care of that outside of that issue. So local governments are in this position where you don't want to go out and buy a parcel not knowing that the project could move ahead. So you tend to wait until the money is secured for that project, and then you try to act on what options you may have put into place. So there isn't, as I understand, there isn't a legal option on that land right now.
My third question, this is more a procedural question. About a year ago, after this council took office, I noticed the procedures for going in camera seem to have changed. Prior to that point, even your first meeting, you would have a regular meeting or a special meeting. And at the end of that meeting, you would vote to adjourn. There'd be a motion to adjourn and go in camera. Now, since sometime last year, that hasn't happened. You adjourn, and miraculously, you're in camera. In fact, there's even one case where you had an in-camera meeting where there was no motion, or that's what's reflected in the minutes. So I just wondering why this has changed. I've looked at the minutes online. I haven't viewed the official minutes, but the last council rarely met in camera, but when they did, there was always a motion in public to go in camera. Now, that motion does not seem to be happening at a constituted meeting. You would, from what I can see, you adjourn this meeting, and then you're in camera and you start a motion there. So what caused the change between the previous council and this council?
Well, that might be my fault. What we have is we have a list of the proposed motions in front of us, and when we close it, I say, is anybody prepared to make the motion? And the motion is just, okay, that motion is made. So I'm taking the shorthand that the motion that's written down, which is to adjourn and go into in-camera, is what they mean by it, although they don't state it publicly. So that could be my responsibility, that I've created an image that we're not doing what we used to do.
But the minutes would reflect the motion that you want to go in camera. Now, I don't know much about municipal politics, but I've been reading Robert's rules, going through, and from what I gather, council can have two types of meetings. They can have the general meeting like we're at now, or you can have a special and an emergency meeting. Now, you can move in camera from those two meetings, but the in-camera meeting is not a separate type of meeting. It's just in or out of that type of meeting. So if you've adjourned this meeting, like you say, you're doing a shorthand, but that's not what the motion said. The motion is you've adjourned the meeting, and all of a sudden you're in a meeting that doesn't exist, hasn't been advertised. So has there been any opinion whether what's been going on is legal or not? Or this is just the way it's been approached?
Do you want to say anything? Oh, CAO, please.
Basically, there's two kinds of meetings, you're right. There's a general meeting and special council meetings. Emergency meeting is considered a special council meeting. To my knowledge, there's no change. The council follows the act. That's what the purposes that's stated in the act. Those are the reasons that bring council to be able to have those matters discussed in camera. I wouldn't disagree with the mayor's comments in terms of the motions, in terms of adjournment and whether or not council goes in camera. There may have been an abbreviated motion there, but then we could certainly look into that to make sure that it's followed as it should be. But if there are special meetings can be scheduled where there's no public meeting such as tonight. If it's scheduled and notice is given for the in-camera meeting, and you still have to have that agreement of council with an acceptance of the agenda, et cetera, and a motion to commence the meeting. And if council was not prepared to go in camera, then it wouldn't go in camera.
Well, we could go back and forth. I just wonder if there could be some sort of who to approach to find out if what's been going on is actually legal, and whether it is put in jeopardy, say, all these land purchases, because you haven't actually legally gone in camera.
Correct. We have gone in camera. The council has received information on the intent. They've given direction to staff to follow up, which is permitted. And if you read the act, it does say you can, council may direct staff and or legal to follow up on certain matters. At the end of the day, once everything I's are dotted and T's are crossed on property, for example, there will need to be a motion to put all of that out. But there was a motion following the in-cameras that adopted, or the report that was submitted, for the staff to proceed to acquire the properties.
We could go back and forth forever about this. It's splitting hairs on parliamentary rules, but that's another thing that seems to be lacking, or perhaps I'm missing. I haven't gone back and watched all the meetings, but usually when you come back, and tonight you'll approve minutes for an in-camera meeting, but there's never any motions, or none that I've seen, or very few that I've seen, to actually legally put things into place. Does approving the minutes, is that what you're saying, is actually approving what you discussed and decided in camera? And like you have to come back to public meeting and vote on things, not just vote on the minutes. Is that the way the procedure is here now?
You cannot make a decision in camera other than to provide direction to follow up on. So in the instance of the example that you provided on the property, council received information. There was basically the direction was to acquire various properties based on the reports that were in the information that was available at that in-camera meeting. Following that meeting, the next public meeting, there was a public motion voted on by council to acquire and proceed as per the direction on that report. It was vague, and I think has been said before, you can't acquire property if you said you're going out to acquire this property because you need it and then expect that you're going to negotiate it. But at some point, that information, when all properties are finalized, which I believe is pretty close, that information will be tabled publicly as well.
Original question, if I agree to disagree, would the council be following up with somebody in the government of New Brunswick, or would that be my responsibility to, is it the privacy commissioner who I could ask for a ruling, or would the council provide that?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that as you speak, I'm realizing that I asked for a motion on approving the agenda, and we didn't get a full motion. We just got a I so move, which means that we're adopting the motions as they're printed, which means that each of the ones we're doing is actually the ones that show up in the minutes. And perhaps what we're going to have to do is talk through every single motion as it's written down in the future to be sure that we capture the public announcement of what we're trying to do. Although in this one, it's a good question to ask. We'll have to think about whether there is any implication. Certainly to us, we know what we're passing in terms of an emotion. But your point is we need to read that out so that the public understands what's fully in each motion.
2 points. I want to know that, first of all, you're actually going into in camera properly and coming out of camera or whatever, and then actually legally voting on the motions. I'm not convinced that adjourning a meeting, saying that's the shorthand version, then going in camera and actually having a motion at the meeting where the public is not there to say that we're excluded. Like you'll go into a meeting after this or at some point, and the first thing in the minutes now is you have a motion to go in camera, but you're not in public session, which is where that motion probably should be. So I just want to get some clarification on how you're going to go in camera, whether you have to do it from a public meeting.
Right. Okay, so we'll clarify that. We'll put it, get it in writing so that we can get it to you. Do we have an email or anything we can get to?
I think the clerk does. I
Okay.
corresponded earlier this year. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, you've had a look at the agenda. Are there any disclosures of interest for the evening? No, hearing none, we'll move to minutes and motions, please. Regular council meeting November 13th on page 3 of your package. Moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Butcher. You should probably say you're moving adoption of these minutes. All right. Moved adoption of the minutes, a regular council meeting of November 13th, 2018. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. November 19th on page 10 of your package. Move adoption by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Black. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. On page 12, you have meeting of December the 3rd.
I move that we adopt the minutes of the meeting of December 3rd.
Councillor Evans moves adoption of that meeting, seconded by Councillor Butcher. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Page 15 for the closed in camera of December the 3rd. Councillor Evans moves adoption of those minutes. Seconded by Councillor Butcher. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. One last special meeting of December 5th on page 16 of your package.
Move the adoption of.
Moved adoption of the minutes by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Evans. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? No? Okay, we move to item 7, Southeast Regional Services. I will discuss that, although I would like to note that Deputy Mayor Aiken was unable to attend tonight. He sends his regrets. And Deputy Mayor attended the last Regional Service Commission Board meeting on my behalf. And he noted that it was probably the shortest meeting the board has ever had. And the substance was the 3 motions in terms of, which we talked about a couple of times now, about in terms of studying the characteristics of the existing landscape for water and sewer services in the region, similarly for policing, and the third of the nature and type of governance arrangements that exist in terms particularly for those who are unincorporated or LSDs, local service districts, and what some of those options might be for some of those areas to increase their political representation as they are presently managed by a bureaucrat out of Fredericton. So those were all passed, and action on those 3 are underway. Okay, any questions on that short report on a short meeting? Okay. Go to Mayor's report. You have some hard copies in front of you. Sorry? Oh, sorry about that. We have planning next under 7B. Sorry about that.
Thank you,
Please
Your
go ahead.
Worship. In the month of November, 3 permits were issued for the town of Sackvill. This brings our year-to-date total to 65 permits in total, with a construction value of $23.7 million. This is up in both in number of permits issued as well as construction value from this time last year. There's been a number of development inquiries and discussions that continue on in the office with the public as well as prospective people looking at doing projects in town. As well, one of the things that the Southeast Regional Service Commission has been working on is developing a follow-up practice for when terms and conditions are imposed, both through council, through rezoning processes, as well as from the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee, and in general, just in the overall issuance of a development permit. So making sure that any of those conditions that have been imposed are followed up before the file gets closed off as being complete. And another initiative that we are working on is developing a series of compliance lists. This is mainly for when somebody's changing a use of a property so that they understand and have a clear direction as to what types of information they should be looking at providing, as well as what kind of implications that might have for changing over, say, from a residential use to a commercial use. So that's very difficult to do because there's so many different possibilities, but it's just meant as a general list of key things that people should be looking at.
Councillor Evans, you have a question on?
This sounds like a good initiative, but I think the public message should be, if you're thinking about changing a use, talk to the planning people first, right? Would that be a good?
Certainly. I mean, even if we do compile these lists and have them posted somewhere available publicly, it's always best to come in and speak to staff directly, because there's often each case is unique in itself and will have a number of things that should be looked at.
Any other questions on planning? Any other comments? comment quite often on the size of the assessed value over the last couple of months. Councillor Finney, you have a question?
Lori, can you tell me, how is the opening of the Burger King coming along? They've gotten permission to use that drive-through, right? So do you have any idea when they will be opening? People have been asking me, so I thought you might know.
They had indicated that a building permit is good for 1 year, but they have indicated that they thought they'd be back in the building within the month. So give or take as to whether they run into some issues that are unforeseen, but their targeted date was a month before they'd be back in.
No other questions on planning? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Bickford. We'll move to the mayor's report. Couple of media items. Tribune on the farmers markets bags. We met with them. You'll see down that we had a photo op with that. I'll talk about that in a minute. Also had some interest from CBC on the research motions at the Southeast Regional Service Commission, because they noted that we had voted against the original structures that they were proposing or spoken against it in the past. So they were interested in whether we were pleased with how it had turned out. I indicated that I was, and I'd be prepared to talk to them about it, but they never did call back again as other things got in the way. So, limited media, lots of events. We note several of you were seen at the same areas, the Firefighters Awards night, Mark Critch's book interview that many of you were at, staff recognition night for the town, attended the All Candidates Forum, as many of you did. The business mixer at the Commons was very interesting, and an opportunity to see how that can work in terms of the relationship between business people and those with ideas. Others there, you'll see various things around the town over the last week or so. I did meet with the executive assistant of the MP in their office on a couple of items, particularly on infrastructure funds and when they're coming and how they're going to be managed, and also a couple of potential business opportunities that might come to the region that we spoke about to see where they might be hamming. Met the farmers market manager, who had lots of ideas about how we would like to see the market expand and over the next little while. So we went through some of those ideas. There was lots of activities on the knowledge/education front. I did meet with the principals of the schools prior to the most recent meeting of the DEC. As you know, we wrote a letter to the DEC, which you all have some copies of, stressing the economic importance of the opportunities that could come from reform. NB Business Council has opened a path again, wanting to talk more about that economic development end of things. And I did meet with some of the 2020 members after the DEC decision about what their plans were for how they wanted to proceed. A couple of the candidates for council asked for meetings with me, and I did meet with whoever asked for that. We had several recent discussions over the month about floodplain numbers, data, where they're at, and how long would it take before we saw them into map format. And there's certainly a clarity that the data is there, and it is slowly being worked on into floodplain maps. So at some point in the fairly near future, we may see new floodplain maps for this area. There's no commitment on time yet, but those discussions have had. Bit of an update on Age Friendly, although I'm looking forward to meeting that group in advance of the New Year's levy, so we'll have some understanding of what they're recommending. One of the Harvard individuals who came to the Education Forum last summer has kept in touch, and he contacted again in terms of what the DEC's decision might mean and what other opportunities there might be, although he made it clear he's no longer able to support whatever the process is, because his position at Harvard has changed from what it was earlier this year. And there's a couple of other items there, basically looking at trying to encourage some of the people who are looking at the region to consider coming into our area. Okay. Any questions on this month's summary? No? Thank you. We then move to the CAO's report, item B.
Thank you, Worship. My report's on page 19 in the package, and basically just want to if I can, mention once again, it's a busy month for all the departments. There's a lot of information in each of the reports, and I'm not going to steal the thunder, as I've been, it's been mentioned that I often do that, and so I'll refrain from that tonight because we do have a couple of big items on with their budget coming up being proposed for 2019, although I will say that 2018 was a very good year financially for the town, so congratulations to everybody, in particular the finance and the department heads for managing their budgets. It's put us in a pretty positive position to begin 2019, so look forward to the motions that will be presented. And also, I think management's quite pleased to put in front of council this evening as well the results and outcome of the recent tender on Lawrence Street, and there's certainly lots of details that council has received and has been shared with throughout this process, and I will leave that to Public Works to speak further on during the motion. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but if there is a question anyone has, I'd be more than happy to try and answer for you.
Any question on the CAO report? Nope. Okay, we move on to item C. Councillor Tower, I believe you've got this.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The bills and payroll part, I'll let the treasurer speak on any points of that before the motion comes forward.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. Page 20 is the payables report for the month of November. Large invoices paid in general government, debt payments, $35,000 for the month, as well as power bill. We had an invoice for patching, IT and garbage. In utility government, debt payments were responsible for about $60,000 of the 111. As well, we had payments for Veolia and power bills. General capital consisted of property, Lawrence Street, and holdbacks. Holdbacks for prior issued claims made up $250,000 of the $350,000 that was paid for the month. The payroll for 3 pay periods rather than 2 is listed there, as well on page 21, as well as the reasons for the overtime.
Thank you for that, Michael. I move that council approve the bills and payroll for the month of November 2018 as follows. General government, $299,747.13. General capital, $347,331.97. Utility government, $111,068.73. Utility capital, nothing. And salaries of $297,457.21.
Moved by Councillor Tower. Seconded by Councillor Black. Question?
Questions?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Moving on to part 2, the information's on pages 22 to 28 in the packages. The financial statements are included to the end of November 2018, with approximately 1 month to go in the year of 2018, and we have reviewed overall position of the general and utility budgets and have made projections. These projections allow us to determine the necessity of transferring money into our reserve funds. A summary is as follows of the details listed within the report. 2018 general budget. Revenue is expected to exceed projections by at least $242,000. Expenses are expected to be under projection by roughly $60,000. General capital projects under budget or project did not proceed totals to $375,000. The total capital projection for the current year, plus prior year, excluding the fire truck, is projected to be $1,080,000, of which the items that were to be borrowed totaled $481,000. Given the above 2018 budget differences and others that we're proposing for the following 2018, all general capital expenses other than the new tanker fire truck purchase to be made through the capital out of revenue if possible. Transfer $190,000 to be put into the General Capital Reserve Fund for the budget year 2018, and $65,000 of this will be earmarked for Main Street. The transfer of $190,000 into the General Capital Reserve Fund will bring the total in this fund to approximately $815,000 to start the year 2019. Taking out the $65,000 allocation for Main Street completion will leave approximately $750,000 in the fund. Given this amount, it is anticipated that we will be able to use these funds in 2019 to cover our 25% of Lawrence Street Phase 2 construction project, thereby projecting to not to have to borrow any funds in the general for Lawrence Street Phase 1 and 2 or property purchases. The 2018 utility budget. Revenue is expected to exceed projection by $95,000, which will cover the excavator and the installation of the sewer line at the end of Bridge Street. Expenses are expected to be under projection by $31,000. With the above, it is recommended that the transfer to the Utility Capital Reserve Fund to be made for the year 2018 to be $111,000 rather than the budgeted $80,000. A budget is forthcoming to authorize this transfer. A motion, my apologies. This will bring the total amount for the Utility Capital Reserve Fund to approximately $255,000, which we will use in the future to cover the cost of the future lagoon upgrades. The 2019 budget process continued through November and December. Information was received from the province on November 28th. Council then met and reviewed our entire general operating, utility operating, general capital, and utility capital budget proposals, which will be presented tonight. The highlights are: maintain the 2019 tax rate at 1.56 per $100 of assessment. Tax base increase of 2.36% for the tax base of $634,635,750. Equalization grant of $65,757, which is all comprised of core funding with no equalization funding to be provided to Sackvill. Continue with the 2019 water and sewer rate increase proposal in 2017. General capital projects totaling $1,005,359 for the year 2019, which includes $367,359 from gas tax funding. Utility capital projects totaling $482,000 for 2019. A complete report has been provided to those in attendance and will be put on our website for review. Motion will be forthcoming tonight on all items. Water and sewer bills for the period of July 1st to September 30th, 2018 were due on November 14th. We will send out the reminder notices for overdue accounts in December. There continues to be no change on submission of reports and claims for Lawrence Street Phase 1 and 2 projects. In addition, we have requested and have approved for a scope change for Phase 2, which will enable us to maintain the entire funding while removing the construction of the Epito from the agreement. Staff have received a draft asset management plan, which will be reviewed and finalized before a motion of council is presented in January or February. The policies received will also be reviewed in the new year. As well, we have submitted all funding requirements and still await payment of, for the $48,000. We have been advised that the funding distribution is delayed due to a number of submissions received by them. Dog tags for 2019 are now on sale at Town Hall. Proof of rabies and vaccination must be presented at that time. And the bylaws officer and animal control statistics for November are attached. And
That is your report.
my report.
Any questions on that report? There's Councillor Evans, please.
I don't have a question, but I just was deciding when during this meeting I should gush about the job done by staff. I have gone through 7 budget processes, and I'm always impressed by the competence of staff, but this year I was especially impressed because we got our asset management plan report. It indicated that we have an infrastructure deficit or maintenance deficit, something we need to deal with. We've had good planning and good management to date. We had some really good luck. I mean, the extra, I don't know, was almost over $100,000 in building permits is not good management and good planning, it's good luck. But what we did with it is that we put it towards moving ourselves to a position where we're going to have a much bigger capital out of revenue, a much smaller debt servicing component to our budget. We'll be able to spend more on capital projects, and all of it will go to the project. I am just so impressed that we have a plan. We're moving to address the asset management stuff. We have a target, and everything we're doing is consistent with moving towards that target. So it's always impressive, but this is a particularly impressive year because not only is it competence, but there's good luck as well and good planning. So thank you to staff who made this statement true.
Thank you for your words. Councillor Evans, yes, it's nice to have good luck this time when we had the bad luck with the assessment matter last year. Any other questions or comments on the report? No? Councillor Tower, you have
Yes, I
variety
have a
of
few
things.
motions, Your Worship. I move that on the 10th day of December 2018, the municipality of Sackvill, New Brunswick resolved that the sum of $10,991,183 be the total operating budget of the municipality. That the sum of $9,900,318 be the warrant for the municipality for the ensuing year, and that the tax rate for the municipality be 1.56. That the council orders and directs the levying by the Minister of the Environment and Local Government of said amounts of real property liable to taxation under the Assessment Act within the municipality of Sackvill, New Brunswick, adopted this 10th day of December 2018, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the budget documents.
moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Tower,
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Tower, just to note
Yes.
that I think in your next motion, that might be the wrong date. It might be 2019, not 2018.
That is, yeah.
Is that correct? Okay.
I move that council authorize the allocation for the Southeast Regional Service Commission for the 2019 budget year as follows. Solid Waste Services, $107,954. Local Planning Services, $211,215. Cooperative and Regional Planning, $4,325. Regional Destination Marketing, 3,609.
Moved by Counselor Tower, seconded by Counselor O'Neill. Counselor Finney.
Make a statement. Everybody knows how I feel about the Southeast Regional Service Commission. I think they're a waste of money and time. The one thing I've noticed over the years is that our local planning services have increased because the last time I remember when we used to have the planning commission here in town, the cost was about $160,000. Now we've gone up another $51,000, and it continues to increase every year. When's we going to turn around and say no longer get rid of the regional service commissions and let's take it back and do our local planning within the town? Thank you.
Counselor Finney. Any other comments or questions? Question?
Question.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Counselor Tower.
Yes, Your Worship. I move that on the 10th day of December 2018, the Council of the Municipality of Sackvill, New Brunswick, resolve that pursuant to paragraph 117(4) of the Local Governance Act, that the total budget for the water and sewer utilities for the ensuing year would consist of a total revenue of $1,949,610 and the total expenditures of $1,949,610 adopted this 10th day of December 2018 and authorized the mayor and clerk to sign and seal budget documents.
Moved by Counselor Tower, seconded by Counselor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Moving right along, Your Worship. I move that council authorize the transfer for the budget year of 2018 of $190,000 from the general operating budget to the general capital reserve fund.
Moved by Counselor Tower, seconded by Counselor Black. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move that council authorize the transfer for the budget year of 2018 of $111,000 from the utility operating budget to the utility capital reserve fund.
Moved by Counselor Tower, seconded by Counselor Evans. Counselor Evans, please.
We asked the treasurer to explain, part of this stuff is because of our good fortune this year, part of it is part of a plan to deal with the lagoon expenses, so perhaps you could explain how it's broken down?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Councillor Evans. When we approved our water and sewer rate structure in 2017's budget, which was for the year, we're heading into 2019, which is the third year. The first year in 2017, we had budgeted to put $40,000 in the reserve fund, which we did. In 2018, we had budgeted to put $80,000 in the reserve fund, and based on the projected revenue and expenses within the utility, the water and sewer operating fund, we're able to exceed that by $31,000 and put $111,000 in. In 2019, our budget projection is for $120,000 in the reserve fund. The following year, $160,000, and $200,000 the following year, and each year thereafter, until such point as we are ready to complete the lagoon upgrade, which a number of years ago was estimated at $7 million. Probably by the time we do construct it, it will be closer to $10 million, but we will need infrastructure funding in order to do that. So at some point in the future, probably when we hit 2021 and beyond, we'll be ready to fund the lagoon project without any further rate increases directly relating to that project. This is why we're building it. We'll be at 255 at the end of this year, and we'll continue to build it.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay. I move that the municipality of the town of Sackville submit to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board an application for authorization to borrow or guarantee the repayment of money borrowed from a capital expense for the terms and amounts and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the said document. Protective services, bunker gear replacement, $24,000. SCBA upgrades, $50,000. New get my tongue tied on. Tools of $64,000. Transportation services, water meter replacement, $62,000. Lift station upgrades and repairs, $20,000. Water treatment plant upgrades, $40,000. Trunk sewer upgrades, $175,000. Water and sewer renewal, $185,000, for a total of $620,000.
I think that last figure, did you misread 185 to 135?
Oh, my apologies if I did, 185,000 it should be, not 135.
Okay, thank you for that. So moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Evans. Mr. Beal, would you like to give us a little background on that one, please?
Yep, this will be for authorizations to borrow. There's no guarantee that we will be borrowing these amounts, but these will be, will give us the authorization in order to have our funds available and allow us to get interim financing from the bank to fund these during the budget year. And through 2019, as we determine our financial positions, we'll be able to determine what we do and don't need to borrow out of those funds. There is one point that needs to be stated. I need the years read into the motion as well for each of these items, where this will be a certified copy of the resolution that needs to go to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board. I will need the years read into each of those items as well.
So shall we reread that motion?
I would suggest.
Okay. So read to the far
Yeah,
right of the column.
extrication, I'll get this time.
Tower.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, I'll start from the top again. I move that the municipality of the town of Sackville submit to the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board an application for authorization to borrow and guarantee the replacement of money borrowed for a capital expense for the terms and amounts of and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the said documents. Protective services, bunker gear replacements, $24,000, 5 years. SCBA upgrades, $50,000 for 5 years. New extrication tools, $64,000 for 5 years. Transportation services, environmental services, water meter replacement, $62,000, 5 years. Lift station upgrade and repairs, $20,000, 5 years. Water treatment plant upgrades, $40,000 for 10 years. Trunk sewer upgrades, $175,000, 10 years. Water and sewer renewal, $185,000 for 10 years, for a total of $620,000.
So, motion moved by Councillor Tower. Councillor Evans is seconding it. Question? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is carried. I'd just like to note that although we had a motion, you hadn't completed the actual motion, so it wasn't, we're not considering that that was actually a motion on the floor. You went back to read the full motion and read it into them, okay? Okay.
I move that council approve the general fund capital out of revenue breakdown in the budgeted amounts of $1 million for the 2019 budget year as follows. New extrication tools, $1,000. Facility capital upgrades, $40,000. Replacement wooden fence Lilas Fawcett Park, $15,000. Beach Hill Park, $25,000. Town beautification, $15,000. Former Lund property development, $15,000. Trail development, $25,000. Playground equipment upgrades, $15,000. Generator power for the Civic Center EMO, $286,000. Road reconstruction, St. James, $35,000. Road reconstruction, Bennett Street, $70,000. Road reconstruction, University Avenue, $100,000. Road reconstruction, Stevens Dry cul-de-sac, $20,000. Road reconstruction, Donald Harper gravel, $25,000. Road reconstruction, Cattail Ridge and DOT, $109,000. Sidewalk renewals, $40,000. Crosswalk flashing lights, $35,000. Retaining wall, Main Street and Wright Avenue, Wright Street, $15,000. Public Works fleet replacement truck, $34,000. Public Works fleet roller machine, $50,000. 3 stream garbage bins, $15,000. Signage, highway, waterfowl streets, $15,000, for a total of $1 million.
Moved by Counselor Tower, seconded by Counselor Butcher. Counselor Black, please.
Thank you. I'm just going to reiterate a little bit what what Councillor Evans said. When we talked about the asset management plan, one of the things that was mentioned was that some of the things we have in our town as assets were aging, and we needed to put some money aside to start working on them. This budget came right after our asset management plan, which hasn't even really fully been finalized yet. But from what I can see in the 30 line items that we have in here for utility and general, 19 of them, from my count, would be asset management geared, and that we're looking after things that we need to take care of, like our roads, our sidewalks, upgrades. You see upgrades in there all over the place, reconstruction, and this is just all good stuff. Some of it, the budget's not flashy, really, in any way. It's pretty basic stuff, but it's needed in the town, and I'm really, really happy to see this.
Thank you, Counselor Black. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried.
That is all for now, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Tower. Move on to tourism report. Councilor O'Neill, is that you?
Yes, that is, sir. Thank you. The report's on page 31. The department is looking forward to more sign upgrades in the town during 2019. The tourism and business manager attended a meeting in Mount Allison to discuss ways to increase the ways Mount A and the town can help promote and support each other. The town collaborated with a variety of groups to co-host networking events at the Sackvill Commons. Collaborators included Startup Sackvill, CBDC, Westmoreland Albert, the Sackvill Commons, Ron Joyce Center for Business at Mount A, Futurepreneur, Renaissance Sackvill, and the town of Sackvill. The town has rented space in the Visitor Information Center for many years to Robert Line Graphics, as well as the Sackvill Craft Gallery. And we are proposing renewal of their rental contract, which I will read a motion for in a few minutes. It's for a 3-year period, 2019 to 2021. In November, there were 230 visitor kit bags presented to Sackvill Minor Hockey and Mount Allison Facilities Management. And the manager attended and participated in several meetings during the month of November. The Waterfowl Park Advisory, Fundy Biosphere Financial Committee meetings. He attended the Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick Annual Forum in Fredericton. And he was also interviewed twice by Mount Allison students for a class study for their commerce program. So he seems to be keeping quite busy. Also from that, I'll read the motion and then I have another announcement to make. I move that council approve the Craft Gallery Visitor Information Center rental agreement for for the period identified in the contract, which is May the 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, May 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, and May 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021, at the rate of $1,000 per month, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the agreement.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill. Seconded by Councillor Tower. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
And I have one other motion. I move that council approve the Robert Loyne Visitor Information Center rental agreement for the period identified in the contract, May 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, May 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, and May 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021, at the rate of $133 per month, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the agreement.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. And at this time, I'd also like to report or to announce that the winner of the Moonlight Madness gift basket draw is Pat Beliveau. The Moonlight Madness people will be in touch with her about her prize. That's
Thank
my
you.
report.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councillor Tower, are you on again?
Yes, I am, Your Worship. Jumping back and forth. The information is in the packages on pages 33 to 35. Engineering Public Works, winter sort of jumped on us rather quick in November and created a rather busy time for winter control with the several storm events we had. Public Works Department monitored all areas in the town during the heavy wind and rain events. Public Works staff worked with the fire department and the NB Power to close and clear roads as needed. Public Works staff and our subcontractors have continued to work on the new Dufferin Street Sports Field utility shed during the month of November. The utility department continued to work with the annual maintenance of the several lift stations during the month of November. Tender number 2018-07 Main Street reconstruction will be coming up for a motion tonight, and I'll have further information at that point. At the Tantamar Veterans Memorial Civic Center, the month of November was an exciting month at the Civic Center with several hockey games from Mount Allison, Tantamar, TRHS, and minor hockey. There are also 4 tournaments in the past month, starting with the Titan Girls Tighten Your Skates tournament, the Wayne Hicks Classic Bantam and Midget Rec, Tantamar Regional High School Boys Carl Ward Invitational, and the Dave Wheaton Invitational Provincial Tournament. Civic Center will be closed for the holidays from December 24th at noon until December 27th at 6 a.m. And again, December 31st at noon to January 2nd at 6 a.m. The Civic Center is open during operational hours in the event of even in inclement weather and during power outages for citizens to get warm and charge devices. If the power is out, the Civic Center, at the Civic Center, the building will still be open, but there, at this time, will be no power to keep the heat going, and we are going to look forward to having that part fixed. The monument work on the Lund property had to be put on hold for winter and will resume in the spring once the artist can access the site to do the work. The bridge work in Waterfowl Park is completed. There's still some small trail work that needs to be done to tie in the second bridge. This will be temporarily completed as weather permits, and finished work will be done in the spring. Public Works will be plowing the rail beds and maintaining trails at the Waterfowl Park that connect to Main Street during the winter months. We'd like to give a big thanks to the Outdoor Club for the grooming of for skiers at the Beach Hill Park and the Crooked Tree and Ogden Loop. Beach Hill is also a great place to get out and go snowshoeing on the marked trails and some other adventures you might want to create of your own. The programming department have snowshoes to be loaned out. And that is that part of your report.
Councillor Tower. Councillor Evans, please.
Really impressive report. I really enjoy the Public Works report. And I want to start off, I have a question for the town engineer, but I want to apologize for not giving him a heads up first. I like to do that because it helps him prepare for the answer. But I had a discussion this weekend, and I was asked the question about our radar speed signs. We purchased 3 of them a few years ago, and as far as I can tell, I think there's only 1 still in operation. So if you don't mind putting you on the spot, could you address those and where we're at and where we're going?
Thank you, Councillor Evan. The radar sign, we have one on King Street that's there, and the other one had to have repairs to it on the solar system. Solar panel got stolen from it, that's been replaced. The third one got stolen outright, and we never were able to recover it. But the repairs have been made, and there's been requests from RCMP to get them up and running, and we have it on our list to do, and we'll be looking at that right away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Acton. Councillor Finney.
Mr. Acton, I know we spoke about this at the budget meeting. The thing is the generator that's needed at the arena. How are we doing this? As a matter of fact, I've had a citizen ask me, how are we going to turn around and put that in place? And when are we going to put it in place?
The proposal is, I believe, to do it in a phased approach. So the phased approach is to, I believe, put away slightly over half in 2019's capital budget, and then next year hopefully put more funds away. And maybe again it could be a 2 or 3 year phased approach, but put enough money away to be able to put a complete generator system in there, because the generator system today's dollars is approximately $500,000 to do that, to provide enough power to operate our EMO reception center. So it's going to be a phased approach, and as you heard this evening, there were, I believe, $286,000 that were contributing towards that phased approach in 2019, and it is our intent to continue with that until we get enough funds to be able to put a generator there. It'll be similar to the town hall facility, where it'll be a remote building that will house a properly sized generator that will automatically transfer over everything in the building to operate the building when needed.
I just wanted to ask you to explain that so the public would understand exactly how we're doing this, because it was also mentioned that there is no room here if there was an outage, as a matter of fact, but there's lots of room at the arena in case we had to house people to keep them warm and everything. And so the sooner we get that in, the better it will be for everybody within the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tower. Just a comment. I think when you were talking about the Main Street, that there was a tender for Main Street, I think you made reference that you were going to return to that, but I think you meant to the other tender in your package, just so that people understand that. So any other questions on the report? If not, Councillor Tower, you.
I have a motion, and then I do a reading here. I move that council award tender number 2018-17 Lawrence Street Stormwater Mitigation, construction of the new stormwater retention pond and related work to the lowest bidder, Birch Hill Construction Limited, in the amount of $1,985,499.58.
Moved by Councillor Tower. No? Seconded by Councillor Evans. On the floor, Councillor Finney, you wish to speak?
Yes, I do, Your Worship. I'll be voting against this motion for the following reasons. First of all, this water retention pond, as it was explained to me in our liaison meeting, will only hold 40,000 cubic meters of water. And from what I gather, we need to be able to contain 100,000 cubic meters. So I see no relevance in doing this, other than the fact that when I ask the question of what's the next phase, then that means we need to go to the quarry. The quarry, because there is no other avenue after we do this one to go any other place. So I'm thinking to myself, we don't own the quarry. So that hasn't even been established as yet. It certainly is going to be a liability, which I know we certainly want to put on the town taxpayers. And the thing is are we sure we're going to be able to get access to the quarry? They've probably given us permission, but what do they want for it? And that's what I'm wondering. And the thing is, from what I gather, they're willing to sell it for $1. Well, that's great, so they can get the liability off their backs and put it on the backs of the taxpayers of this town. That still, even if we do a retention pond up there, is still only going to be not quite 22,000 cubic meters. So we're still not quite 62,000 cubic meters, and we need to be able to contain 100,000 cubic meters. So that's phase 3. Then there'll have to be a phase 4, and I don't know where that's going and how much more that's going to cost. Right now, we just seem to be fly-by-night project, as a matter of fact. I'm going to be quite frank and blunt. I don't have any faith in Crandall Engineering anymore. I'm sorry, they just seem to be winging it. And I really feel that it's the wrong way to go. I think we need to stop it now and look at another way to go and do this project instead of going this way. Because once we start to the retention pond, this one, then the only other avenue is to continue on going to the quarry, and I think that's the wrong thing to do. So that's what I have to say.
Councillor Black, please.
I just have one question. We asked a lot of questions and got a presentation on the tender. But the one question I think is important to ask, just so that the public can hear it, is there any, and I know I've asked this before, but is there any protection for the town if this contractor ends up finding something that might make the dollar amount larger? Do we have any protection that $1.9 million plus is what is going to be paid, and there won't be anything else that has to be paid by the town?
Mr. Acton.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, the contract and the tender is quite detailed. There's a lot of details that goes into into putting the tender together. And when the tender is approved and the contract is written up, all of the details that go along with that, they sign off on and are well aware of. So the geotechnical was done prior to, in the tendering process. They're well aware of all that. Is there anything that come up, like any contract, there's some extras come up that weren't foreseen, but nothing substantial, absolutely not. No.
Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you. I think it was 2 years ago at our priority session, we determined that flood mitigation was our #1 priority. And phase 1 was a complete success by my view. Phase 2, we all know what happened when the bids that came in, they were all over budget. It was a huge problem. What we're doing is we have approval from 2 other levels of government for funding. And we are trying to mitigate the big one, the worst case scenario, in which case we might have to deal with 100,000 cubic meters of water. The proposal that we have is very impressive as far as I'm concerned. We are doing the best that we can afford to do. And we are also doing it in such a way that if we do get extra funding, we'll be able to add to this project with minimal undoing. So and I'll talk about the facts, but we have a goal, let's say, of dealing with 100,000 cubic meters of water. If we're only able to deal with 60-something thousand cubic meters of water, that's 2/3 of a very good thing. The alternative would be to say no to the money and not do anything. I'm almost speechless considering that alternative. I am really impressed with this project. The company, which is an award-winning company, we had dealt with problems which came in because contractors didn't assess risks the same way our consultants did. The EIA put huge conditions on it, and we were hoping that we were able to do things which were actually in the provincial government's responsibility, the Aboideau. And the conditions that that came out of the environmental impact assessment were part of the reason why the cost was so high. So what we're doing now is dealing with most of the floods that will occur. We will not be able to deal with the big one as well as we would have had we gone with our ideal plan. But we are going to be able to mitigate the flood damage in a much better than we have in the past. But even we haven't built any retention ponds yet, and we've already been able to deal with the kind of floods the kind of water that happens every year that would have previously caused flooding. That's just with the ditch infrastructure. Once we have an extra 60,000+ cubic meters of capacity, we're going to be in a much better position. So I want to commend staff for the good job they've done, how they've dealt with, along with the consultants, a setback, and about what a good job they've done to explain things to me in a way that I can understand, and as well incorporate into something which is an engineering project, an attempt to respond to public input and make it a park. We're not just going to dig a big hole in the ground that water is going to go in. The idea is to build something which, when it's dry most of the time, will be park-like, and I really like that dual-use aspect of this. So my response, I'm very happy to support this motion, and I want to commend staff and consultants for the job they've done getting us to this point.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Tower?
Yes.
Comment?
Thank you. I'd like to, you want to let him go ahead?
No, he'll be next after you.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to give the background of it. As many in the community are aware that we have been actively working on the Lawrence Street Phase 2 project for some time now. Our consultant team, which I have great faith in, Crandall Engineering, have been leading this project. As many people know, there have been challenges in the project, and this is our second tender process for Phase 2. During the first, the lowest bidder submitted was almost double the budget, as everybody knows. This sent our consulting team back to the drawing board to evaluate options available within the allocated budget, which is $2.9 million. While our team was left to evaluate the options, they remained focused on the overall priority of our community, which is to mitigate stormwater in the Lawrence Street area. And as Councillor Evans said, if we didn't do something, we're going to be in a mess. Bigger mess if we did what Councillor Finney wants us to do. Our consultants publicly presented the options available at our September 4th, 2018 special council meeting. Since then, they have been busy working with the town and meeting with the representatives of the federal, provincial government, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Provincial Environment, and CN to gain confirmation of the various aspects of this project in order to prepare the engineered design tender packages for the modified plan. This plan will still require stormwater to be controlled in a naturalized retention pond on St. James Street. However, in the short term, the water will be redirected and discharged to an existing epitome as opposed to a new ditching system and new epitome at the Tantamar River. It is important to note that this is a short-term solution and that the long-term plan remains unchanged, which will hopefully get us up to that 100,000 and maybe a bit more. But will require future phasing pending the future approval of financial support from the federal and provincial infrastructure programs. The new tender was modified, for this modified project was issued November 6, 2018, closed on November 24th. A total of 13 tender packages were picked up and 6 formal bids were submitted. And I made this motion with respect to this tender, and I look forward to this work getting underway. As noted in several other reports, pending council endorsement of the tender, our consultants will be meeting with selected contract with the selected contractor, and subsequently, we will be scheduling a public information meeting to discuss the project in greater detail, including construction schedule and any anticipated disruptions, timelines, etc., and other works and tenders that may be advanced within the allocated budget.
Thank you. Councillor Finney?
Supplement, as a matter of fact, I was told at our liaison meeting, first of all, I asked if there was another way we could go other than this way, for instance, going to St. James and then the quarry. But I asked how much it would cost to turn around and do the project at the quarry. I was told $350,000. We don't even know yet whether we have to do an environmental impact assessment up there. So how much more over and above that's going to cost? And then how much more money are we going to have to spend to hopefully get up to 100,000 cubic meters? There seems to be a never-ending pot of money somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from, but we'll certainly be putting it on the backs of the taxpayers. And I'm not overly impressed with this project right now. So, thank you.
Any other councillor wish to weigh in? Just point out that it's, for two things, is 1.9, of which about 500,000 will come from the town, because it is a cost-shared program. And Mr. Finney's concerned that the next step is the quarry, and it's not in this proposal, this amount of money. Just so people are clear what Councillor Finney's concerned about where we're going next. Okay. Question? Question. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Nay. One nay from Councillor Finney, please. Note. Okay, thank you. That it for property and facilities, recreation. Councillor Butcher, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is found on page 36 and 37. First of all, I would just like to mention that for the 4th year in a row, Deanna Cadman won the annual holiday door decorating contest with the town staff. So that's well worth mentioning. The annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony was held in the Bill Johnstone Memorial Park on Friday, and we estimate that 350 people took part in the event. It was really a beautiful night with all that cosmetic snow, so there was lots of people out to visit Santa and get the free hot chocolate. The town and the Sackvill Strummers hosted a ukulele Christmas kitchen party the past Thursday here at Council Chambers, and it was a packed house. Public is invited to the annual Mayor's New Year's Levy, which is held on January 1st from 1 till 3, and it's here in Council Chambers as well. Sports Recognition Night is scheduled for Tuesday, January 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Tantramar Veterans Memorial Civic Center. So this event recognizes local athletes and teams of all ages who have medaled at the provincial level or higher during 2018. If you'd like to submit your team, athlete, or coach, contact Town Hall before January 9th of 2019. Winterfest, Sackvill Winterfest will take place February 21st to 24th, 2019, and this year's event looks like it will be the biggest yet. It will now include a Town versus Gown charity hockey game, as well as the Fireman's Winter Carnival, and there will be several routine motions to follow. A draft copy of the Recreation Master Plan has been circulated to the Planning Committee and the Town Management for review, and it should be ready to be presented to Council early in the new year. And as noted at the special council meeting on December 3rd, Marilyn Lurch's term as our Poet Laureate will expire on January 1st. Unfortunately, Marilyn has decided to move on from the position. We're very thankful for Marilyn's work and dedication over the last 4 years. And a motion to appoint Shoshana Wingate, who is a local poet, fiction writer, memoirist, and founding editor of the Arts and Culture journal Riddle Fence, is to follow as well. And the library report, Sackvill was once again outperformed other two-person libraries in the AWK region, and as a result, the library has started the process to request a second staff person. That's a multi-step process, and it could take some time. And that is my report.
Questions on the report? Councillor O'Neill, you were first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Isn't a question. I just wanted to let everybody know that the runner-up on the decorated door was Matt Pride. Thank you.
Councillor Evans, please.
Nobody remembers who comes second, but what the question we're all going to have to answer at our trivia competitions is, what do the Tantramar Titans and Deanna Cadman have in common? And they've both won a title in 4 years in a row, right? Anyway, impressive report.
Councillor Butcher, I think you have some motions
I
as well
do.
then, if no other comments?
Okay. I move that council authorize the fire chief, as part of the Winterfest activities, to complete an application to purchase from Mac Fireworks to provide a commercially organized fireworks display to be held at the Bill Johnstone Memorial Park on Friday, February 22nd, 2019, with a rain date of Saturday, February 23rd, 2019.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Finney. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
I move that council authorize the closure of Ford Lane from the entrance of Bill Johnstone Memorial Park to Lansdowne Street on the evening of Friday, February 22nd, 2019, from approximately 4 p.m. until 8 p.m., with a rain date of Saturday, February 23rd, 2019, to accommodate the Winterfest fireworks show.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Black. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
One more. I move that council authorize the appointment of Shoshana Wingate as the Town of Sackville's Poet Laureate, effective January 1st, 2019, and ending on December 31st, 2021.
Moved by Councillor Butcher, seconded by Councillor Evans. Okay, Councillor Evans, you have a follow.
Yes, I just want to take this opportunity to publicly thank Marilyn Lurch for her service. Councillor Butcher did a fine job mentioning that in her report, but I just want to echo that. She went above and beyond and has really made this position something that's of a real contribution to the town. And the poetry event we have here, the work she's done in the schools, she's just gone above and beyond, and I just want to thank her publicly for the great job she did, and I have every confidence that Shoshana is going to live up to that standard.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll make one passing one, is that I did not know Ms. Lurch very well prior to this, but seeing her at and hearing her work at so many functions was actually quite fulfilling for me. It's the way she could put some of the thoughts into the words that she announced was amazing. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Butcher? We go to Public Safety. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sackvill Fire and Rescue responded to 35 calls for service in the month of November, which included 16 utility pole fires. I guess that was caused from trees on power lines. 7 commercial fire alarms, 6 motor vehicle collisions, 2 smoke in residence, 1 commercial structure fire, 1 call for lift assist from Ambulance New Brunswick, 1 garage fire, and 1 carbon monoxide alarm activation. Training sessions included apparatus and equipment orientation and station and equipment checks. During the month, the members had the privilege of marching with the veterans on Remembrance Day. And the Ladies Auxiliary hosted their annual Christmas banquet, which saw a large number of regular members, honorary members, widows, and deceased members, or deceased firefighters in attendance. Congratulations to the members who were recognized for their service and special achievements. Those recognized were as follows. 5 years of service went to Carrie Ann Melanson and Jonathan Chapman. 25 years of service went to David Weir. 30 years of service went to Wendell Crossman. The Rookie Firefighter of the Year went to Brandon Estabrooks and Laura Thurston. The Training Award of the Year went to Wade Palmater. The Fighter of the Year Award went to Darren Estabrooks. The Charlie Richards Memorial went to Travis Thurston. And the Lifetime Achievement Award went to Don Crossman. We would like to thank and congratulate the members for receiving those awards and all of their dedication. The Sackvill Fire and Rescue held its 6th annual Parade of Lights on Saturday night. I'm sure everyone would agree that it was an impressive event and a super job of decorating the vehicles. The couple of reminders from the chief. He reminds everyone of the importance of using power bars where possible when putting up your Christmas trees or with your Christmas lights. If you have a real tree, he asks us to remember to water them daily. And he also, as always, reminds us, the residents, to make sure they have a basic emergency kit prepared to last 72 hours in the event of an emergency. That is the fire department's report. If there's any questions, I'd ask you to direct them to the chief, please.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, not a question, but a comment. This has become such a big deal that Squire Street has a street party on this night, and all the kids were out there on the sidewalk with sparklers when the trucks or when the vehicles went by. It's a really impressive show, and I just want to say thank you for doing that. The volunteers take a long time decorating the vehicles, and it was certainly well received in my neighborhood.
Well said. Any other? Okay. Councillor O'Neill?
Report from the RCMP. The past month, the overall number of calls for service in the detachment area has been trending upward from last month and is notably higher than last year for the same period, 130 versus 99 last year. The rise in calls is largely due to a sharp increase in motor vehicle collisions, not only in the detachment area but within the town. In November, there were 22 collisions in town. It is thought that this is largely due to some early winter driving conditions. Uniformed members conducted 8 check stops and wrote 19 tickets in town, 5 of which were for speeding offenses. There were also 23 school visits by uniformed officers, and they also hosted a couple of elementary school classes for tours. That is with the RCMP, and I also have a report from our CPO, our Community Policing Officer, and he visits schools, or first they had requests for service. Tanama Regional High School, the requests for service were for 2, plus they make occasional visits to meet students and teachers. Marshview had no requests for service, but they also did occasional visits there. And Sale Elementary School had a request for 2 services, and he also visited and met with students and teachers. In the community, he continues to keep busy with events, both in the community and also on several committees. Some of the committees are Crime Stoppers, Block Parent Program, Link Program, Youth and Adult Diversion Committee, Access to Mental Health, and so on. And I know that he has been really busy the last few weeks working with RCMP and other organizations. I saw a fire truck out there the other day. There was an ambulance with them. But anyway, they were trying to spread the word and working for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, encouraging people not to drink and drive. He also has, there has been some occurrences, administrative ones, files that he's working on, 2 youth files for possession of illegal drugs, youth file for unauthorized use of a firearm, 1 youth file for threats, 1 youth file for theft, and 1 adult file for property damage. So those are the things that he has kept himself busy over the last month. That's my report, Your Worship.
Perfect timing for your presentation. Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm glad to hear that the 5 speeding tickets in town. In terms of people talking to me about complaints, speeding has taken over from noise. And that's been my experience. And so I was pleased to hear from the engineer that one of those radar speed signs is going to be another one we put back into service. And I hope that you work with the RSMP to deal with this, because unlike noise, which is annoying, speeding, especially on narrow streets, can kill people. So this is a really big deal. So I'm glad they're dealing with it. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments on the report? Hearing none, is that, you have no motions, correct? So we can move to policy bylaw. Councillor Black, I believe that's you.
Thank you. The Policy Bylaw Liaison Group held their meeting on November 15th, 2018. During our regular council meeting of November 13th, the bylaw number 263, a bylaw respecting Sackvill policing, received its third and final reading. Bylaw number 264, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy in the town of Sackvill, received first and second reading at the November 13th regular council meeting, and there'll be anticipated motion for the third and final reading being considered tonight. In keeping with bylaw number 251, a bylaw respecting the procedure and organization of council, a motion should be considered to reschedule our May 2019 regular council meeting from May 13th to May 14th to accommodate the Mount Allison University convocation. The clerk's office has also begun a review of bylaw number 251, a bylaw respecting the procedure and organization of council, amending references to the Municipalities Act, as well as housekeeping items. Staff will continue this review and look to present the changes at a meeting in the spring of 2019. With regards to the upcoming by-election, the newly elected councillor will be sworn in at the beginning of our regular council meeting of Monday, January 14th, 2019. The clerk's office has begun to prepare an orientation package for the incoming councillor and hopes to meet with them early in the new year. And I do have some motions if there's
Any questions
no
on the
questions.
report first? See none, you go to the motions.
I move that council give third and final reading to bylaw number 264, a bylaw relating to the establishment of a special business improvement area levy in the town of Sackvill.
Moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
I move that the municipality of Sackvill NB enacted by bylaw that a business improvement levy be imposed on all non-residential property within the business improvement area of the municipality that is liable to taxation under the Assessment Act. The levy shall be in the amount of $23,311 and at the rate of 20 cents. And the council hereby directs and orders the Minister of Environment and Local Government to levy the said amount pursuant to provisions of the Business Improvement Area Act and authorizes the mayor and clerk to sign and seal the budget documents.
Moved by Councillor Black. Seconded by Councillor Evans. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor Black, you have one more, I believe.
Yep. I move that council authorize the date change of the regular council meeting of May 2019 from Monday, May 13th, 2019 to Tuesday, May 14th, 2019 to accommodate the Mount Allison University convocation.
Moved by Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Butcher. Comments? Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Evans, have you got personnel?
Yep. The following is an overview of recent events during the past month. Council liaison met on December 6th, and during the pay period of November, there were 37 permanent employees and 2 temporary employees. Congratulations to the following employees on receiving their service recognition awards. Corey Johnson, 10 years. Phyllis Stopps, 15 years. Fred Crossman, 15 years. Michael Beal, 25 years. Hold your applause. Pam Hicks, 30 years. Dennis LeBlanc, 35 years. And Brent Tower, 40 years. And on my list here, I have all the firefighters again, which Councillor O'Neill read. And so I think I'll just skip them and get on to a fact that we have a grievance regarding a call-out provision of the collective agreement, and that has been referred to arbitration. That's my report, and I have one motion.
One question from Councillor Finney, please.
I just want to make a statement, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you to all of our staff, management, unionized, They do good work. I don't agree with them always, but the thing is I want to take a special thank you towards the unionized people and the fire department and our RCMP for the work that they do in the freezing temperature colds of 20 and 30 degrees below. You know, and I know what it's like because I do the same thing at Mount Allison University. So they go above and beyond when they have to work in those kinds of temperatures. And I also want to say I apologize to our unionized members. It's something that's been bothering me for some time. During the negotiations, the topic that come up was the fact that actually they weren't that's, oh my gosh, I forgot it. The seniority doesn't matter. I think that's what the issue was. As a matter of fact, for instance, if they turned around, had been working, and if that clause wasn't in there to protect them, then they wouldn't have the opportunity of being able to apply for they could apply. But if it wasn't there, then management wouldn't have any reason to turn around and give them the opportunity. So I want to publicly apologize for not speaking up and speaking out at the time the negotiations were going on. So thank you.
Councillor Tower.
Thank you. It's just more of a comment because 25 years for our treasurer, and if you look at the man of all the great work he's done with all our staff, which I agree with Councillor Finney on, he still doesn't have any gray hair showing, so.
Any other comments or questions on the report? Hearing none. You have a motion, Council?
Yeah. I move that Council approve Mayor John Hyam, Councillor Bruce Finney, Councillor Mike Tower to attend the FCM conference in Quebec City from May 20th to June 2nd, 2019, and authorize all eligible expenses, registration, hotel, per diems, mileage, and non-provided meals to be paid for this conference, and that they will report back to Council on the 2019 conference proceedings.
That was May 30th, not 20th.
Yeah, it would have been a really long conference. So Councillor O'Neill has just shortened the conference by 10 days, and I'll go along with that and amend my motion.
Amended to May 30th.
May 30th to June 2nd. Yeah. Now, way to go, Joyce.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Evans. Seconded by Councillor Butcher. Councillor Evans.
I'm just going to throw this out there as food for thought. Rather than thinking of attendance at a conference as an entitlement that everybody gets a turn at, we might consider deciding among ourselves who the most appropriate person to send would be. And we could send a delegate that we think will do the best job in terms of attending stuff and bringing back information and sharing it with the rest of council. I have this motion out there and I'm prepared to vote in favor of it, but that's something I would like to consider doing. This is work. This is a job we're doing on behalf of the town, and I don't think it's good enough for councillors just to go and come back and, you know, let's say produce a less than fulsome report. So I'm going to advocate that for next time, but I'll let this one stand as it is for now.
Councillor Black.
I agree. I guess that's why we put in the bottom of this that report back to council on the 2019 conference proceedings. It is mandatory to report on what you've done, your attendance, what you've discovered, what might be helpful at the conference that would benefit the community or fellow councilors, staff, whatever it is. So I think it should be stressed that there is adequate reporting back to council and accountability for things like this, considering how much money it does cost to send councilors to these events.
Question? Oh, sorry, Councillor Finney.
I'd just like to say, I'd like to comment on that because the fact is our management staff attends a lot of different conferences too. All we hear about is the fact that they turn around, are gone, and they go there. We don't hear any reports. It'd be nice to hear from them. That's why when actually it was brought forward, and I believe Councillor Evans was one to turn around and bring forward the fact of being reporting and everything. That's fine, I agree with it. But maybe management should be termed to turn around and actually report back to council as to what's going on. Because it is the taxpayers' money. And if we're being so fiscally responsible, maybe they need to turn around and actually do reports as well. It's a two-way street. It's not just one side. Thank you.
Question? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor Evans. That's your only motion, I believe? Okay. Councillor Butcher, you have corporate affairs.
I do. Thank you. The report can be found on page 46 and 47. Work continues on the town's new business development strategy that's being led by Lionsgate Consulting and 4L Strategies Consulting. The consultants provided a public update at the December 3rd special council meeting, and a draft current situation report has now been completed. So that provides a snapshot of the current statistics and the research undertaken to date and the town's organizational structure and approach used, as well as the best practices identified. And the report is a background study for the strategy, and it will later become an appendix. The consulting team will be continuing with key informants until the holidays, and a business survey is open for participation until December 21st. So business owners are encouraged to visit sackvill.com if they're interested in completing the survey before the 21st of December. The staff expect a draft strategy to be completed by the end of the year, and the consultant will be making a public presentation in 2019. Staff continue to assist our engineering consultants, Crandall Engineering, with the revised design for Lawrence Street Phase 2 and the land assembly needed for the overall long-term concept. And now that the tender has been closed and the motion has been made, we've awarded the tender, the consulting team will be meeting with the contractor to discuss the anticipated start date and the construction schedule, et cetera. Once this information is known, staff will be arranging a public information session so that these details can be shared with the community and the residences and businesses who are near the proposed construction site. The meeting will be publicized on the website, in the monthly newsletter, on the newspaper, radio, and social media channels, and regularly project updates will be provided once construction starts. A public information meeting is anticipated for January as well. And staff were pleased to participate in Dr. Sandy McIver's Commerce 4361 class, People Skills in Companies. The class embarked on a live case study with town management to look at the ways in which we communicate internally, along with the skills and the teamwork that the management group needs and relies on. Staff were on campus to attend the group presentations on November 30th, which were lively and provided lots of positive commentary on our team, as well as on our entire community. And it was a very interesting project and provides yet another example of how the university and the town work together. And staff are in discussion with Sentinel Systems, our emergency communication software provider, on several issues following the gas line break that was back in October. We hope to make some improvements to the system so that messages are consistent and easily identifiable as a town communication program. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Finney.
Yes, I was wondering, could you tell me who the staff were that were on campus to attend the group presentations to Sandy McIver?
All of management was invited to attend, and at the end of the day, 6 were able to make it up. Involved myself, the treasurer, the engineer, the senior manager, corporate services, tourism business development manager, 1, 2, 3, and Matt, our recreation manager. I'm still sore over the fact he could run her up in the door.
Councillor Black, please.
Thanks. I just had a question and a comment. With the public information session, it says regular project updates will be provided once construction starts. How will those updates be put out? The same way that the session will be? Just in the guise of transparency and all that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Black. I guess what we did during phase 1 is that we have a specific section on the website, and we provided every month or so, we provided a full construction update, and we then pushed that message out to our Facebook and Twitter pages directly from the website.
Councillor O'Neill, please.
Yes, Your Worship. The improvements to the system, read the messages and so on. I guess when the message came in over about the gas break, I thought, frig, that's another call center. I think come up as a 416 number. I was ready to hang up on it because I'm so disgusted in receiving about 6 of those a day sometimes. But anyway, then I recognized Mr. Burke's voice, so I stayed and listened to what he had to say. But I guess my question is there some way that when those come in, we'll actually know that it's coming from the town rather than having to really start to listen through on them?
Is that Mr. Burke, or is that?
It's fine, yeah. Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Yeah, hear you loud and clear, and it wasn't just you who felt that, and that's, you know, the, I guess, inability to recognize the number and where it's coming from. Several of our own staff experienced the same thing and same feeling. So we've reached out to Sentinel Systems. It is a New Brunswick-based company in Bathurst. So we know them on a first name basis. So we have reached out to ask if there's a way to customize that message, and not just on the 1-800 number that comes through, or whatever that unidentifiable number is that comes in to leave the message, but also the phone number that's attached to the text message as well. We've asked if it's possible to customize both of those messages so that it would be clear that it's coming from the town of Sackvill and it's our emergency public alert system.
Thank you. Councillor Black again?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I'm really pleased with the work of the business development strategy so far. I mean, there's still a lot to do, and already what we've seen reporting back to the public and to council has been some pretty valuable information. So I just wanted to say that I think it's going really, really well, and I look forward to seeing it in its entirety. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any other? No other comments? No motion for corporate affairs? Nope. So we'll move on to new business. There is no new business that I was aware of. Anybody? Okay. Okay. So question period then. Mr. Work.
I have a few questions about Lawrence Street Phase 2. Just want to confirm the retention pond that will be constructed by the new contractor, Birch Hill, will hold, I gather, 40,000 cubic meters of water, and you need, for major storms, to hold 100,000 cubic meters. Just wanted to confirm those figures. It's been said that the quarry project, if that went ahead as part of Phase 2, would hold about 20 or 22,000 cubic meters, bringing it up to 60,000 cubic meters of the 100,000 you need. Are those figures accurate? Is that where we are with this Phase 2?
Okay. Mr. Acton?
Yes. Thank you, Your Worship. Those numbers are correct. The retention pond is designed to handle at least 40,000, between 40 and 45,000 cubic meters. And if the quarry project was to proceed ahead, that gives us the additional 21,400 cubic meters. And then obviously the peak storage capacity that we're looking for is 100,000. Obviously there's a shortfall there, and hence the reason for additional phases hopefully to come and our long-term solution.
Thank you. I noticed the contract to Birch Hill is for $1.985 million, and a total of $2.9 million roughly was allotted for Phase 2. How much money is left over for more work on Phase 2?
CIO, can you?
We don't have that number with us here tonight. We can get that for you, Mr. Work. But out of Phase 2, there is, of course, consulting design fees that will have to be paid, as well as this tender. So there is a fair amount left. I would guesstimate in the range of $500,000 at full funding, but we can confirm that number.
Okay, thank you. The quarry project, Councillor Finney said that would cost, he'd been told that would cost $350,000. Is that roughly accurate?
At this point, the consultant is just finishing the design for that project. It has not gone out to tender. We have not received any budget on it. I know that there were some preliminary numbers that were utilized in our application for FCM because we applied for an FCM funding program. It was in and around that ballpark, but to say exactly what it is, we do not have that information. And obviously, until we go out to tender, we won't know exact cost of that.
Final question on this. I assume that the next thing to come, not the quarry, but the next phase would be phase 3. And Councillor Tower, I think, made it clear that the plan is still to go ahead with another retention pond behind the community garden, an abattoir at the river with the necessary ditching and culverts along the way. Is that accurate, that you're still looking at, in the long term, if you could get the money, to go with the original project?
Yeah, let me answer that one, Bruce. What's become clear is that the climate modeling for a 1 in 100 says that we could anticipate, I said earlier, I think 160,000 cubic meters, but they're actually suggesting it's going to be closer to 200,000 cubic meters that could come down in a 24-hour period for a 1 in 100 year storm. So what that amount of water will create a flow out of at the bottom of Lawrence Street of 11 cubic meters a second. In order to get that out, you'd have to build a railway bridge for the CN tracks for it to flow under. So we understand that the amount of water that could come, which we're now legally obliged, we have knowledge of what the 1 in 100 flood is. That's the industry standard to which we have to adhere to, that we have to proceed to get to that. So we did try to go the other route where we thought we could get much of that covered, but we couldn't afford to go that way. So what we have now is the first step along the way to create this retention pond down at where we control the land, and to build it in such a way that it can either trickle out through this method right now of that to the wrong abattoir, to the one we didn't want to go to which won't be improved, but it will alleviate most of the regular, as Councillor Evans said, most of the regular storms. There will be enough capacity to gather that. The pond is also capable of being diverted to go the other direction. So you're correct. What's next is, do we look at the quarry? It gets it up to 60,000. Do we apply for more money to take it the other way and have a second abattoir to go out? And if so, how are we going to get that, make that happen, and what's that flow going to be? But the numbers look like, if we put all of those pieces together, we're very close to that 1 in 100 year requirement, which would mean that we're covered professionally as a town of what the responsibility we'll have for what we do will meet the technical industrial standard at that point. You're right that we're not there even with this, but we've designed it in a way that we can build onto it so we can get to that point.
Thank you. I have a minor question on the priority of the projects, the 2019 projects recommended by staff. It says road reconstruction, Cattail Ridge, and that's given a B priority. I'm not sure what B really means, because there aren't many on here that are A. There are a few.
Mr. Act?
Thank you, Mr. Work. The A's basically are health and safety required or regulated. The B's are things that have already been committed and or operationally required. and anything that receives a C is a nice to have versus a need to have. The staff reviewed those, all projects that were submitted, and evaluated them based on that criteria, and then went forward with our recommendations based on that. If you look at the bottom of the budget sheets, bottom left-hand corner, that is actually explained on the bottom left-hand of the two capital budget sheets.
Thank you. And finally, something that didn't arise from this meeting, but I want just comments for my story. According to Elections New Brunswick, Sean Michaud former councillor, has been elected tonight to fill Megan Mitten's council seat, and I'm wondering if there are any comments from the mayor or councillors about that election.
Councillor Evans.
I have to confess that I saw that result, and I looked on the website where all the candidates have their information, and I was going to send Sean a congratulatory message, and he's the only one that didn't have his email address there. So I'm going to take this opportunity to say congratulations. I look forward to working with you.
Councillor Finney.
Bruce, I'm in the same position. I enjoyed working with Sean. Sometimes we had our differences, but overall we worked well together, and I look forward to working with him again.
Anyone else wish to reply? Councillor Tower?
Yeah, I'd like to pass on my congratulations to him. He and I were on finance together, and there was another liaison role, but we worked fairly well together. As Councillor Finney, yeah, there were times when it wasn't the smoothest, but we worked well together, and he has the experience, so it'd be nice to have him come aboard.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Councillor Butcher, did you? No? Okay. Any other questions from the audience?
Council, staff. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the information at the budget meeting. I'm new to town, and Chad Exley, if I didn't say my name, and I just found it really informative, and I really encourage residents to be a part of that process next year. My question is regarding the generator at the Civic Center. I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know that that was the warming center, so it's good to know, because the house that we moved into is completely dependent on electricity, and I didn't need to know that in Vancouver, but I really need to know that here. I just would like kind of a follow-up on how that is not a health and safety issue, seeing as that, my understanding is that is the emergency facility for the area, and how that wouldn't be an A priority over a C priority, because it does seem, I mean, I know it was only out for 12 hours, but I imagine that affected a lot of people, and I didn't know where to go, to be honest with you. We just stayed in our car, but.
Okay, CEO, please.
Don't disagree with your impression on it, but I think from the rating perspective, it was government requires you to have this, so that was A, it's legislated, or it's a health and safety, again, where the workplace in Brunswick or something says you have to, put into place something or to fix the situation or improve it on conditions for employees. So if it's not in basically along that line, it doesn't get an A. So that's where the B come in, where it's an operational requirement, and so it was just we perhaps might look to say everything could be an A, and so you have to pick and prioritize, and so those were the categories that staff come up with and set those definitions.
Just to clarify, it's listed as a C.
I think I don't mind trying to answer. The C was at the time the managers basically felt that in order to do all of it all at once, that's what pushed it to the C. So it's operationally required in terms of 2019. So as the treasurer noted, it was to try and transition at least part of the money there. We're still a little uncertain what that final cost is, and to what degree the generator would provide power for the operation at the Civic Center. So we've got homework to do on that yet.
Okay, thank you. I just have one other question. The only road reconstruction I didn't notice was on Bridge Street. And just being new to town and that being, we're trying to funnel people from the highway into town. I've noticed that road is really rough from Lawrence Street out to Cattail Ridge. And I was just wondering if there's a future plan for that I'm maybe not aware of.
Mr. Acton?
Yes, thank you. Yes, there is. It didn't make the 5-year, but it is definitely on the radar. We had some other priorities that we've been working towards as far as our designated highways go, and that is a designated highway, so we have that program to work with, but it is on the radar, and once the existing plan gets done, you'll see sections of Bridge Street fall into the 5-year plan, so they're just outside that right now.
That's reconstruction, though, right? Is there patching as well? That's,
Patching is done on an annual basis, yes. But if you were talking reconstruction, total reconstruction, that's a much more involved project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Oops, Councillor Evans?
Just make the point that a designated highway means it's a provincial highway. It's not a town road. We have shared responsibility, but the surface of it is paid for by the province, and so we have a 5-year plan. That's what a designated highway means.
Right.
Fred Coulter. I just wondered if we have a bylaw, a noise bylaw for operations of machinery 24 hours a day, or is there certain hours they're supposed to shut down?
Can I ask anybody in bylaw? I'm not sure we have a. Oh, Mr. Beal?
Yeah, we do have a noise bylaw. It does indicate that construction activity can't take place between, I believe the hours are 11 and 7. And with the exception of municipal vehicles, NB Power vehicles, or any other provincial, federal, or municipal operations that are required outside between 11 and 7 a.m.
The reason I was asking you is that they're harvesting logs up past home there, and they're pretty well going all night with harvesters. And it started this morning about 4 o'clock, and it's still going on now, I understand. So I just wonder if they're supposed to be, if they even, I wonder if they even know there's a bylaw.
We'll get the bylaw officer to look into that. Yeah, we'll get the bylaw. Thanks. Any other questions? Hear none? Full motion, please.
What? You want the, why? You want a reason for it?
You're moving that council adjourn the regular council meeting of December 10th, 2018.
Yes, I move that council adjourn the regular council meeting of December 10th, 2018.
Moved by Councillor Tower, seconded by Councillor Finney. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.